This is our homily for Sunday, June 9th, the 10th Sunday of Ordinary Time. It was almost 11 p.m. when a nurse got off of work, having worked overtime because of an emergency. She reached in her pocket for her keys, but they weren't there. Suddenly she realized she must have left them in her car. Frantically, she headed for the parking lot. Her husband had scolded her many times for leaving her keys in the car's ignition, afraid that the car would be stolen. As she looked around the parking lot, she realized he was right. The lot was empty. The woman immediately called the police, gave them a description of the car, confessed that she had left the keys in the car and that it had been stolen. Then it took her about 15 minutes to get up the courage to call her husband. "I left my keys in the car and it's been stolen," she said to him. There was a moment of silence and the woman thought the call had been disconnected, but then she heard his voice. "Are you kidding me?" he barked. "Your car needed service. I dropped it off." Now it was her turn to be silent. Embarrassed, she said, "Well, please come and get me." He retorted, "I will, as soon as I can convince this cop that I didn't steal your car." We fall into patterns in our lives. We do things over and over. And then when we do something different, it can mess it up. That's what happened to the woman in the joke. She almost always drove herself to work, so she forgot that her husband had dropped her off. Another way of saying this is that we can get set in our ways, having one way of thinking about something so that even fresh evidence will not change our minds. That is the warning for us in our gospel today. Both Jesus' family, who were loving towards him, and the Jewish leaders, who were hostile to him, were so set in their ways, so sure they were right, that they were not able to allow new information about Jesus to change their way of thinking. Jesus' family, they knew him for 30 years as he grew from a small boy to a young man, and then a mature carpenter. They thought they knew all there was to know about him. So they were focusing on the past and what they thought should be, instead of allowing what was really happening to change their concept of who Jesus was. As a result, they thought he was crazy. They loved him. They didn't want anything bad to happen to him, so they were coming to get him. The Jewish leaders had different frozen ideas. One has to follow all the rules and laws, and Jesus wasn't doing that. So they could not see and accept the good that he was doing because of their preconceived ideas. As a result, they ended up murdering him. This is a warning to us. We can be so set in our way of thinking that we block out the Holy Spirit, who is leading us to growth. It can be for good intentions and out of love, as the family of Jesus acted, but it's still blocking the Spirit. And just as much of the grief and pain in Jesus' life was caused by people who could not allow their way of thinking to be changed or challenged. That is often what happens in our families, in our workplaces, in any groups where we gather. We get ideas about someone, and we will not let other information change our way of thinking. And then we interpret everything from our own biased point of view, causing unknown problems and untold heartaches. One example. I was once in a work situation where a co-worker thought that our boss was not a good leader. No matter what the boss did, my coworker was critical. If the boss got involved in a situation, she was micromanaging. If she didn't get involved but left it up to us, she was shirking her duty and didn't care. See the double bind? No matter what the boss did, she was criticized because my coworker had made up his mind that she was no good. The result? Tension and unhappiness for everyone in that work situation. I read an article that suggested that before any action, I should ask, am I doing this out of love or out of fear? I would rephrase it. Am I doing this out of love or to protect what I believe? So the reflection I invite us to this week, are there people that I judge and will not let grow? Am I harsh towards certain people? Do I allow myself to grow by taking time to listen to the Spirit? Focus on one person whom you could judge less harshly and focus on their positive points. Perhaps you will find a new friend, but at least you and those around you will be happier. And as we struggle with this, let us support each other in prayer. God bless.